So here's our 1986 Sears Craftsman II riding lawnmower after the engine swap. We've been mowing with it. This thing has just been peachy. Now when I got this, it had a 12 horsepower Tecumseh engine in it. Engine needed to be resealed, so what we did is we switched it out with a 17.5 horsepower Briggs Intech from a Deere D100. It barely fit in there, but I was able to make it fit. It bolted directly up, no problem. Air filter housing is right at the side panel, but the side panel clears the oil filter by a couple mil. Throttle linkage hooked up entirely the same, perfect. If I wanted to, I could get rid of the fuel pump and just gravity feed it from the tank, but that makes the fuel get to the carburetor faster. I did eliminate the electric fuel cutoff. You could keep that if you wanted to, but it just, for us, it's not necessary. We're smart about when we cut it off. As for the exhaust on the Deere, it had a two-piece system where you have an exhaust manifold pipe that comes down and then the muffler goes on the bottom. The regular Husqvarna part that I would use to replace this to make it work is all one assembly. Pipe is attached to the muffler and there's a bracket that attaches to the engine head. But those are $35 and there's better things to drop money on. It's actually quieter in this mower with this system than it was in the Deere. I think I was having to try so many times as hard to run because the electrical system was bogged down by all the safety switches and the extra wiring. There was a lot of parasitic drain on the battery. One thing that worked out really well is where the fan is on the Briggs Intech engine is perfectly in line with these breather holes. So it can actually get fresh air directly through the top of the hood, which is very nice. The original Sears light switch had pretty much all of its life milked out of it, so I added in this new switch. You can get these at O'Reilly's or any auto parts store. It has an illumination wire on it, so if you want a light on it, it can work that way. I just hooked it up the same way as you would any switch. The wheels and tires from the John Deere were in better shape, so we threw those on the front. They were the same size, bore, and everything, so they fit directly on there. Our mower deck deflector shield fell entirely apart. About the third time we used it to mow, it got kind of caught and just ripped to shreds. So I made this new one here. I made this out of a old IBM computer case side and just kind of like eyeballed it and cut it to size. Cut the notches to fit around the support here, drilled my holes and got it all bolted in, and then kind of knocked this edge down and cut and contoured this edge around the deck to give it the shape. Now you don't get anything out the side, gonna hit a window or anything, but you've got plenty of room for the clippings to discharge, which is good enough for me. It's nice and solid because it's steel, and I went over it and hit it with a duplicolor aluminum engine paint, so that'll help it be a little bit more durable. It already had like a really good thick paint on it, but I wanted to give it something that would kind of withstand a little bit more than just that paint, so that's what I used. Here's the aluminum engine paint that I used for the guard. DE1615 aluminum is the part number. It's duplicolor. Here's the deck guard from the Craftsman. Here's the original. And this thing is pretty much toast. It was already had a big hole in it, and then it ripped itself up. So that's what we replaced with that PC case. As for the belts, these belts are awesome. Engine belt and deck belt. I use these belts from offroadbelts.com. These things are awesome. They're Kevlar Aramid belts. We use the absolute hell out of this mower the last few days to catch up on like a month and a half of not being able to mow. And these belts are just perfect. And they haven't frayed or anything. I'll throw the part numbers up on the screen, so if you need these for your Craftsman, they'll fit the stock application. These are just stock belts. So I'll throw those numbers up on the screen if you need these belts for your Craftsman. So I changed some things on the battery. The battery that's supposed to be used in here is opposite to the battery like we used in the John Deere. All the stuff in our yard takes this U1 LUH battery. For us, you know, that's the battery that we use. So this one factory had the other one where the poles were flipped. So what I did is normally on this tractor, the positive would be over here and the ground connects like right here and it only reaches here. So your positive would be here and your ground would be here. So what I did is I took the ground cable and unbolted it from down here, and then I moved it over here and bolted it in here. And I ran a new ground cable over here to where I can sit the battery in correctly and safely. I also took these bumpers. Yes, they're both red. I could paint one black, but we know what's what. But I put these bumpers on there so they're extra protected. And ground's over here and positive's over here. So now it's like perfect. It's got plenty of room, it won't fudge around, and it's protected. So that's nice and safe. I'll probably come in and make a new holder for the battery, but for now it's a lot safer than it was, because when it was backwards, it was really close to this edge and it could spark. So that's how I converted the battery cable situation over to the battery that we use. Right now the deck is riding a little low because we put some simplicity wheels on the back of it for the time being. It's supposed to take a bigger tire, but the bigger tires were entirely dead, so we're running with these until we order some new tires for it, but it's been mowing perfectly fine.